What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. Pretty interesting day. It is selling off. I want to talk on what is prompting that sell-off and why a lot of the data points behind the scenes is signaling that it is a overreaction. So I'm going to go over all that, but first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. Currently, Lucid is down 4.55%, 268 the low, and 279 is the high. 12.28 million shares have been traded, 31.5 is the average. So once again, similar to yesterday, institutions aren't really getting into Lucid as much as they once were, roughly about 2 weeks ago. So far, only 2 transactions above $100,000 occurring on the secondary market. Dark pool, very popular as it usually is. That is linked to shorting. So I'll touch on shorting in a second, but today there's been no news specific to Lucid, no SEC filings, nothing like that. So what is really prompting Lucid to go down? I'm sure a lot of people already are well aware of this by now, but Tesla did unveil their Q1 production and delivery numbers. So they did come short as far as the delivery numbers, and this is what is prompting all of this fear. But if you do think about it, Tesla did miss out on their numbers largely because of the shutdown that did happen in Germany, so their Gigafactory, and then aside from that, just a lot of competition in China. So Lucid, they're not in China, and nor do they have a big ass facility in Germany. So a lot of this kind of problems is a Tesla specific problem, not necessarily a Lucid problem. But then again, whatever happens to Tesla, good, bad, and the ugly, does trickle down to other EVs. But once again, this is why a lot of the data points behind the scenes that I'm going to share with you is all signaling that it is a overreaction. So take that for what you will. A lot of people are panicking about all this. So again, it might be justified, it might not be. I am more leaning towards that this is just a Tesla problem, not a Lucid problem. But aside from that, I did a video yesterday and I did mention that Lucid will be unveiling their Q1 delivery and production numbers probably around April the 13th. That's what happened last year. And so of course that's a good benchmark to use. And so when it comes down to their actual earnings, Rivian did come out with this. So they came out with their Q1 production and delivery numbers today, but they did announce their actual conference call, so their earnings conference call on May the 7th. So over the last 3 quarters, Lucid and Rivian have had the exact same day. So it is fair to assume that Lucid's earnings is actually going to be on May the 7th. They, again, will probably come out with their Q1 production and delivery numbers around April the 13th, but their earnings will most likely be piggybacking off of Rivian's once again this quarter and be around May the 7th. So that's a little bit more additional context, hopefully, for Lucid itself. But aside from all that fun jazz, going over some data points, Lucid shorts are right now returning 165.09 thousand shares. 29.76% of the free float is being shorted. 261.82 million shares overall are being shorted. And cost to borrow average is a little bit lower in comparison to yesterday, so 31.11%. But still, utilization is 100%. Very high stuff. But the fact is, this is why I like to analyze this information, because shorts returning on a red day shows that it feels that it's unjustified. Because technically, if they felt that Lucid was going to miss on their numbers and their metrics, they would be doubling the hell down. But they're not. So again, I see this information as very optimistic and bullish. Moving on to options, $216,000 in calls being purchased versus 188,000 in puts. And sentiment-wise, 53% of all the options being done today are optimistic. Similarly, obviously, if people did anticipate Lucid to continue to trend down, this is where they would be doubling down, and a lot of the options would be very, very bearish. But they're not. So there's a sense of optimism when it comes down to Lucid, or at least that this is an overreaction. So people are buying the dip, not necessarily common stock, but through options and various other things. So I see that as bullish in my opinion. Aside from that, of the call options that are being purchased, there's a consensus for it to be above $3 by the end of this week and roughly about $3.50 by the end of next week. And then puts, you do see a consensus for it to be sub $2.50. So the risk versus reward forward is very much in favor of upside. Just to give you a quick overview, a lot of people really do like the Elliott Wave technicals, and as it stands right now, it does have a pivot point of $2.55, which essentially is the low for Lucid, the 52-week low. So for as long as that does hold, then it is anticipated to get between that $3.68 and $3.90 in the short term. And while I'm still on an Interactive Broker, just to give you a quick overview, so the latest Morningstar report, which was updated mid last week, does show the fair market value for Lucid being $5.06. So again, take that for what you will. Also on a side note, if you are looking for a lot of good compiled information such as analyst forecasts for upcoming earnings, everything under the sun, even ownership, if you are ever curious on the latest 13Fs, take a look at Interactive Brokers for all of this information to be completely free. So link in the description below or the comments. But aside from that, and moving on just in the short term, looking at some strong support and resistance points, with it right now at $2.73, it is trading between this S1 and the pivot. So it did actually bounce off of this general area of this S1, so we know that's a very strong support, and then vice versa, $2.96 is that next strong resistance. Didn't really touch that resistance level, but given the market and the blood, I don't think that there'd be much upside in anyways. But when it comes down to it, if it does break this S1, which is kind of close, this is where the Elliott Wave technicals would somewhat break down. So again, just keep that into consideration as well, but take a mental note of some of the strong support and resistance points. On the actual chart itself, it is somewhat in consolidation mode, so you do see stochastic as well at 32, so it is considered neutral. And so if Lucid does pull back a little bit more, this is where the stochastic will reset, get back to oversold status. So if there's a good piece of news, aka their Q1 delivery and production numbers and or gravity reservation, then this is where you'll see a rush of value investors getting into Lucid. And then looking at number of retail investors getting in, you can see that they have been constant ever since around the 12th. So even though institutions aren't really buying the Lucid dip today, retail is. So give yourself a shout out if you have been buying, if you've been selling, what have you been doing with Lucid? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And what is your thoughts, for instance, on Tesla's numbers? Do you think that this is in some way going to be a reflection of Lucid numbers, or do you think that they're completely separate? And do you agree with a lot of the data points that it is a overreaction for Lucid? So what's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And one final thing, make sure you guys take advantage of this promo. Simply sign up for an account with Moonwoo, throw $100 at it, and you get 7 fractional shares of the Mag 7. So it does have a $35 total value, so that's a pretty good return on investment for just throwing $100 at the account. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And with all that said, appreciate all of you watching.